Enquanto você ouve suas músicas e podcasts favoritos, deixa eu te perguntar, você já sabe da novidade do ano? Chegou a nova Fiat Titano. A nova picape da Fiat faz bonito nos terrenos mais desafiadores. Performance com motor turbo diesel 4x4 e câmera 360 graus off-road, que ajudam você a ultrapassar qualquer obstáculo. Sem falar que ela tem a maior caçamba da categoria. Tá esperando o que para conhecer? Nova Fiat Titano, chegou a sua vez de fazer história. Paz no trânsito começa por você.
Today on CityCast Madison. It's election season, and our fall primary is right around the corner. In-person absentee voting starts next Tuesday. So in advance of the polls, we wanted to bring you your guide to voting in the 2024 fall primary. We sat down with the City of Madison Deputy Clerk, Jim Verbick, to ask him about what to expect on the ballot, how to vote absentee, the latest with ballot drop boxes, and much more. It's Monday, July 22nd. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Jim, hello.
Hi, Bianca.
I so appreciate you joining us. It's election season. And first, right off the bat, I want to ask, how's it going over there at the clerk's office?
Yeah, we're excited for this election. We have special voting deputies going out this week. We have in-person absentee voting starting the week after. And we have that equipment starting to come in and get rolling and getting set up that we're looking to slowly utilize over these next few elections. We got the August one coming up and then the November 5th election right after that.
Well, you guys are our civic heroes, so thank you. It's very exciting to hear all of the, wheels are in motion here. Let's dive into our guide so we can get people some information. Voters in a partisan primary choose which candidates will be on the ballot at the general election in November. Wisconsin has open primary elections. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so that means when you register, you don't declare for a specific party. You can vote in whatever party you choose for on the day of the election, on the day you cast your ballot. On the ballot, there'll be a selection at the top that says which party do you want to vote for, whether it's Democrat, Republican, Green, Libertarian. And when you choose that bubble up there, that doesn't say I'm choosing all candidates in that because it's a primary. So you have to choose the different candidates in that particular party. And so that's a fail safe. So if you select Republican and then you accidentally vote some Democratic candidates or some constitutional party or whatever the party is, it won't invalidate your ballot because you can vote in whatever party you want, but you can only vote in one party. So if you vote in multiple parties, that will invalidate the votes for your partisan races that you've voted for.
Okay, that's good to know. And speaking about the ballot, what positions are people voting for in this election? Voting, there was my Wisconsin accent. What position are people voting for in this election?
Yeah, so there's a variety of things. So there's a U.S. Senate seat, there's state legislative races, there's some county ones for the Register of Deeds and the treasurer, and there's also nonpartisan for the Dane County Executive's office, and we also have some referenda on the ballot as well.
Yeah, district attorney is up. It's going to be interesting. And, over the past decade, turnout in Wisconsin's partisan primaries have averaged around 20% of eligible voters. Can you help put that into context? Is that average, good, room for improvement? I mean, it's like 1 in 5. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, my opinion is every election's important. So I think 100% is what you want to hit. But no, I certainly understand that lower 20% is typically what it's at. I think we'll probably prepare for at least 40% just to make sure that there's any sort of groundswell for any particular candidate that a lot of people want to vote for or different issues that we'll make sure that we're prepared for that. We like to make sure that we don't run short of ballots, and we do a pretty good job with that.
What about any trends? Have you noticed any trends in voter turnout since you've been deputy clerk?
I have not. I do know that our August primary will likely have a lot less voters in the campus area, given the fact that students are likely
They're gone.
They're gone. Yeah, there are either a few of them still left on campus, remaining in Madison, or if they've gone back home. But yeah, no, we suspect that will probably be low, especially in our campus wards. But no, I've not really noticed any large trends. Obviously, we had our last gubernatorial election was very high turnout, and typically when we have state Supreme Court races on there, that can tend to make some of our nonpartisan elections have a much higher turnout. But I have not noticed any specific trends other than maybe those.
And, many voters in Madison opt to use absentee ballots for one reason or another. And this year, Wisconsin redesigned its absentee envelopes to make them easier to use and understand. What was that process like in updating those? Any concerns about that?
Yeah, we don't have any concerns about it. I think it was changed for the better in the fact that the areas that are absolutely required to be filled out, voter signature, witness address, printed name, that those all have yellow highlights over the words to sort of emphasize that this is what needs to be done. I think they've cleaned it up a little bit, that it seems more streamlined and more easier for the voters to understand that they need to complete these things for their ballots to be counted.
And what are some of the common mistakes people make when filling out absentee ballots or envelopes, and how can they avoid them? It's great that we've got this update.
Yeah, certainly making sure that you complete all those areas. I know there's always some confusion when it comes to the witness. The witness should be someone that was able to witness you completing your ballot. So they should be able to verify that you started with a blank ballot, you were the one that completed the ballot, and you're the one that put it in the envelope. They don't need to see how you voted, but they do need to see that you were the one that voted. So that's the person who can witness your ballot. So sometimes we do get voters who will fill out their ballot at home by themselves. They sign the envelope and they bring it to our office and ask if we can be their witness. And unfortunately, we can't be their witness because they've already voted and sealed the ballot in there. So we have no way of knowing that they were the one that filled out that ballot. So I would make sure that you have your witness with you when you complete the ballot. Make sure that you and your witness are signing, that your witness is printing their name and putting their address on the envelope to make sure that it gets counted.
Okay, so can anyone be your witness?
Yeah, you have to be at least 18 years of age, and there's our requirements on the envelope. I forget what the exact ones are, but I know that's the big one. I know there used to be a requirement that you had to be a U.S. citizen, which was a struggle for some of our overseas voters. I think at one point we had a voter who lived up in the Alps or something like that, and they had to Skype with one of my colleagues to watch them complete their ballot and then mail it to us. And then when it arrived, she could be the witness because she did see her vote it. And she had no other person, but I think they've relaxed that a little bit where now that person no longer has to rely on a U.S. citizen, which they don't have in their near geographical area. So it has eased up a little bit, and it's more accommodating for our voters.
Oh, that's amazing. So no one has to scream into the Alps, "Can I get a witness?"
Yeah.
Quer desenvolver os talentos da sua equipe e potencializar os resultados da sua empresa? Conte com a expertise do atendimento corporativo do Senac São Paulo, que já capacitou mais de 1 milhão de pessoas e profissionais de instituições públicas, privadas e terceiro setor. Construa uma equipe altamente motivada e capacitada e destaque-se no mercado. Entre em contato, acesse sp.senac.br/corporativo e saiba mais. Quer saber? Senac. Enquanto você curte um som, a ClearSale cuida da segurança antifraude de mais de 100 mil empresas em todo o mundo. Só falta a sua. Fale com os nossos especialistas e fique um passo à frente das fraudes e riscos de crédito. Encontre soluções flexíveis que se adaptam às necessidades da sua empresa e garanta múltiplas camadas de proteção em cada transação. ClearSale, one step ahead. O que acende a sua vontade de começar algo? Tem uma faísca em você que te chama para empreender, investir, dar novos rumos para a sua vida. E para todos os seus começos, você pode contar com Santander Select. Um banco mais pessoal, mais próximo, mais humano. Um time de especialistas com olhar atento para cada momento da sua vida. Porque você sabe, só quem já deu muitos passos está pronto para continuar começando. Santander Select. Começa em você, começa agora.
Let's talk about our now infamous ballot drop boxes. Will they be up and running by the August primary?
They will be up and running by the August primary. I don't have an exact timeline on it. I do know that we'll have them up. The critical time, we always have what we call Mail Back Monday, which is 8 days before the election that Monday. We say it's best to get your ballot in the mail to get it back to us. And so we're hoping we'll have them up and running after Mail Back Monday. So that way, that period where we're not quite sure if the mail will get back to us, that the voters will have an option to utilize our drop boxes to get the ballots to us.
They've turned into art, and now they're going back to work for civics.
I thought they were art to begin with, too.
Hey, there we go. I love what is art?
Yeah.
Where can folks find our ballot drop boxes?
Yeah, so in Madison, we have ballot drop boxes in front of all of our fire stations. The one fire station we don't have a ballot drop box in front of is the one on McKenna Boulevard over on the southwest side. Instead, we put it over at Elver Park by the park shelter. The reason doing is because McKenna is kind of up a hill and it can be a little dangerous if we have it right in the street there. So we decided to move that one over to Elver Park shelter. But yeah, it's important that we had it in front of fire stations because there's firefighters there constantly, be able to monitor, be able to see anything that would happen outside their fire station. We have park rangers that go through Elver Park. So we certainly have them in high traffic areas and out in the public where anyone can see them and utilize them.
Well, that's great. Even more security on our very safe elections. And so one term that I think gets people sometimes is in-person absentee voting. It almost sounds like an oxymoron, in-person absentee voting. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I know other states, they like to call it early voting, and we don't call it that because you're technically not casting your ballot. It's absentee voting, but you're doing it in person. And so what it is you don't have to put any sort of request in ahead of time. We have locations in libraries, campuses, community centers, through a variety of locations and hours available, starting 2 weeks prior to the election and then run up until the Sunday before the election. And you just have to show up, bring your voter ID. You can get your ballot right there. We have locations, different stands set up where you can use our in-person absentee voting is done through our accessible voting machines, our express vote machines. They're touch screens that mark a ballot for you. There's still a paper ballot that comes out. You put it in an envelope, you seal it, you sign it, and then our folks that are there at those locations can be your witness for you. And then they'll collect the ballot. And then at the end of that shift, we'll have a courier that will bring your ballot from that location back to our office to get it thrown with the rest of them to be brought to the polling place and to be counted on election day.
Yeah, I love that Madison has a ton of in-person absentee voting locations. We'll definitely throw a link to that information in our show notes. And in-person absentee voting starts July 30th, so it's coming up.
It is.
And let's talk about ward boundaries. Ward as in W-A-R-D, not as in word. Word, son. Ward boundaries have changed due to redistricting. So where can people find their polling places?
Yeah, I'd say they haven't changed too much, at least in this. I know we did a recent abbreviated redistricting, I guess I could say, where we had done that bigger redistricting in 2021, and now we did kind of a smaller redistricting that kind of combined some of our wards that were a little smaller, and we've consolidated a little bit. But they can go to the MyVote website. That's the best place to go. myvote.wi.gov is the state's website where you can look up your polling place. You can look up sample ballots. You can request an absentee ballot. If you need to change your registration, you can certainly do that outside of the 20 days leading up to an election. And that's a great way for you to do those things.
Okay, great. So not everyone's ward, for sure, ward boundary has changed, but maybe some slight small ones. So we're checking out if you're in that minority there. And whenever I'm voting, because I like to go in person, I've got to do the thing. Like, when you walk out the house, you go, I have my phone, my keys, my wallet. What's the equivalent for voters in terms of what they need to bring with them on primary day?
If you're registered, you just need to bring your voter ID with you. That can be a Wisconsin ID or driver's license, passport, military ID, tribal ID, anything like that. There's specific documents that you can use for that. If you're not registered, bring a proof of residence. That can be a ID or driver's license that is current, a utility bill, bank statement, paycheck, any government document, a government letter with your name and address on it. It can't be just a random piece of mail. It has to be sort of something that fits in there, any sort of those things. And for voter ID, if it's an ID or driver's license, it can be expired, but it can't have expired prior to the last November election. And It also does not need to have your current address on it as well if you're only using it for voter ID.
So what about for folks who are not English speakers, that English isn't their first language? Like, what services do you offer or opportunities for folks who, need other language assistance in this process?
We do have a number of election officials who do speak Spanish. On our accessible voting machines, we do have the ability to vote in either English or Spanish. And for those who need it for the accessible machine, it does read it if you have a visual impairment that you can't see. We do post our notices of the polling place for the explanation of what's on the referendum, like what the referendum means, what the yes or no vote means. We post that both in English, Spanish, Chinese, Hmong, to make sure that we're allowing accessibility for all those who speak those languages to access that.
Okay, that's good to know. We talked a little bit about, what positions people are voting for. I am curious, what can primaries tell us, if anything, about the November election? Like, what are we expecting to walk away from our primaries knowing?
I'm not quite sure. I know we have a few races that do have more than one candidate. Obviously, a primary, the goal of that is to narrow it down to one choice per party and then get it so you have one candidate from each party on the ballot. But I'm not quite sure what this one would tell you. There's not a whole lot of races that have more than one candidate running for it. And then we do have the referenda for this. And I know we'll have a school board referendum and possibly a city referendum coming up in the November ballot.
We have been talking a lot about those. I want to highlight the city clerk's motto is, quote, "We exist to assist." That's awesome. Yep. Truly love that. I want to ask you, why do you assist? Why do you do this job?
I believe in public service. I always have. Almost every job I've held has been a public service job, whether it's been federal, state, local. The only one I haven't done is county, but that's okay. I believe it's important. I think we serve an important role, especially when it comes to the clerk's office and maintaining the ability to cast the ballot and have that ballot counted. Yeah, it's very important.
I have to say, I definitely thought, so we're talking on Zoom, and I definitely thought that there was a cat walking in front of your camera, but it was a human being, and you are at work, I assume, and there's stuff going down right now.
Yep. Yeah, I'm in a closet, and we got a lot of supplies here, and people are getting everything ready for in-person absentee voting, so it never stops. There's always things that need to get done, and very little time to do it.
Well, we really appreciate you giving us your time. And can you give us any sense of, like, I didn't really realize the depth of the work that goes into making these elections happen at the city level. Can you give us a picture of some of the works that you guys are in process in right now?
Yeah, so there's a lot of work right now with, as I mentioned this week, we have special voting deputies happening. So we have, I want to say, around 30 to 40 assisted living facilities or care facilities in which we bring ballots to the residents of those locations, and that will last all week. And then we're preparing also for all the locations that we have for in-person absentee voting. As I mentioned before, we had spent grant money on a machine to help sort of sort our absentee ballots that are coming back. So they'll help us analyze whether they have all the voter signatures and voter addresses on them. They'll help sort them into the appropriate ward and then get those all ready and put together for going to the polling places on election day to be counted. We have a public test that happens the second Saturday before the election, where we test all of our election equipment that goes out. It's a public test, so it's certainly open to the public if they want to come watch us. It's mostly media that attends, because usually if you see one machine tested, it's a little bit boring after that, but I'm happy to help educate anyone who wants to come and ask questions about it. And then just making sure that we have all materials ready for election day, whether it's registration forms, ballots, all that stuff prepared and put together for that.
We are extremely grateful for you. Thank you so much. And thank you to the whole clerk's office. If any of you guys are listening, thank you so much. It's so important. And the last question I have for you is, if those folks listening have questions about the primary or voting in general, where should they go for accurate information.
Yeah, certainly if you're looking for accurate information, go to your municipal clerk. For any Madison voters, you can call our office, email us at voting@cityofmadison.com, visit our website. If you have just general questions about where your polling location is or anything like that, as I said, go to the myvote.wi.gov website. It's a great resource. It can do a lot of things for you. But yeah, reach out to your municipal clerk, and we're happy to provide you information.
Jim, thank you so much. You rock, and thanks for keeping our city running.
Thanks, Bianca. I'm so happy to be here.
That's Jim Verbick, Deputy Clerk for the City of Madison. We'll be sharing more about the candidates in a coming episode. If you do have more questions about the coming primary, we have a link to myvote.gov in our show notes. That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin. If you enjoyed the show, why not share this episode with that friend you check in on to see whether they voted? All right, we'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, take good care.